My name is Michael Kramer, and this is my story. I will never forget the fearful look on my mom's face when she came to me at 21 years old, her youngest son, and number 9 of her 10 kids, and told me that she didn't have $600 to dig my father's grave. The night before, he had died on a hospital bed in our living room. He lost a 3-year battle to cancer that night. It started in his colon and spread to his liver. And needless to say, I felt a mix of emotions. I was obviously grieving the loss of my father, which was very sad and hard. And I added to that this feeling of anger and hurt from what I saw in my mother. And I remember asking myself over and over again, how does a man who has had such a long and successful career, business, he was a small business owner, with a great reputation and a great family, die and leave his family broke? It didn't make sense to me. And my dad, Cy, is his name, was my hero. I idolized the ground he walked on. In fact, I would argue that I wanted to be my dad. And what I learned about my dad that day was that while he was a strong, generous, and good man, a good dad, he was not a strong businessman. And that really hurt my family. And I remember at that time thinking and promising to myself, while I didn't know how, I was going to find a way to make this right, and I was going to find a way to make real money. I ended up going to school to get a teaching degree, which you might laugh at is not probably the best way to make money, and I would agree, which is sad. But needless to say, I ended up working for Caterpillar at one of their dealerships after college. While I was there, they taught me how to sell, and I fell in love with the customers, honestly. They were hardworking, blue-collar, salt-of-the-earth business owners, and they reminded me of Dad, except for one big difference. These guys were making real money. They had second houses at the lake with boats. They had pools in the backyard. Their wives were driving big SUVs. They had machine sheds full of toys. That was inspiring to me. I could see that good people like my dad could make money, and after a few years at Caterpillar, I decided that owning a business for myself was my answer to make real money. And so I became obsessed. Every waking moment that I wasn't out calling on customers and selling equipment, I spent researching business. I was reading business books and listening to business content on tape at that time, or CD. And I was going to bed thinking about it. I was waking up thinking about it. All of my energy was given to finding a business, and frankly, nothing was off limits. I looked at every business from concrete construction to chiropractic to dental to body shops and everything in between. Sadly, my wife was wishing that I was more available. I remember her saying that she married a teacher, and she ended up with a guy obsessed with owning a business. I knew she deserved better, but nothing changed. I was committed. I was going to find a way to make money. And I just remember thinking to myself, if only I could hurry this up, right? And get to this business faster and get it going sooner. Then I could spend time with my kids. Then I could spend time with my family. And so I ended up buying a franchise, and I followed the playbook, the recipe, religiously. I was on a mission. I had something to prove to myself, and I had something to prove to my family that owning a business was my answer. And in the first year, I was the fastest growing franchise in the system. And in the second year, I was the #1 sales franchise in the system out of 150 locations. And so I felt like I had made it. I finally had a business that was producing great income and was making great money, and I got the sense that my family's financial future was secure. But I realized my marriage wasn't. And in 2011, we divorced. And that crushed me. Everything that I had been working for and towards was for my family. And now all the money in the world couldn't keep us together. And that certainly was not part of my plan. How did my best efforts and all of my energy and effort end up in divorce? I did it all for them, and it failed. Looking back, I can say I missed seeing the whole picture. At that time, I came to the conclusion that I was good at business and a good businessman, but I wasn't good in relationships, which I now know is a lie. But at the time, that's what I believed. But it wasn't until I read a couple of books, and one of them was Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference, where the light went on for me. And what that book helped me realize is that I lacked empathy in the most important relationships. I used to look at people through this lens of, what can you do for me? How are you going to help me achieve my goal? And it was very utilitarian, probably a nice way of saying it. And I would argue now, looking back, it was very hurtful. It was selfish. It was wrong. It hurt a lot of people. Well, the reason this book struck a chord with me in such a significant way is because it was written for business owners, people who wanted to improve their negotiation skills, to improve their selling skills. What it taught me was that the tactical empathy while it worked in business was also really important in other relationships. A paradigm shift occurred, and it changed the way I thought about relationships. I now started to think about the needs of others and to try to live through their experiences and ask what they were dealing with, and to truly be curious. And the results of that have been dramatic, meaning not only has the business thrived, but relationships have gotten better. It's funny how things work, because I ended up going on to co-author a book with Chris on empathy and leadership, which was a surreal experience to say the least, because I was so far away from his teaching just a few years ago. So that was an awesome experience. Our business is Free by Real Estate, and it's a family real estate investment company here in Omaha. And we purchase off-market properties that are not publicly listed for sale, but sell. So we buy direct from the owners, and they need some work. So we like properties that need a little TLC. Currently, there are 12 family members that work in the business, and our vision for the business is to create generational wealth through real estate investing, which is kind of what you hear everyone say, and to teach the next generation to do the same. That's why we have the family involved, because so many of the assets that we purchase are from what I would call a tired landlord, and we don't want our kids to not understand what they inherit. In fact, we want them to understand real estate and how it can really bless their family financially. And so that's why we've got them involved in the business. All of this is intended to break that cycle of poverty. It is not an exaggeration when I say investing in real estate has changed my life, and it's changed my family's financial future forever. So much for the better. Night and day difference. 3 of my 4 grown kids, I've got 4 kids, 3 of them work full-time in the business. Each one owns property on their own. Some own property with each other, and some own property with me. And what they're learning as young adults is how important it is to have assets that are working for them rather than trading their time for money. That's sort of the paradigm that the world teaches, which is go to school, get a job, get a promotion, get married, have a house. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but I don't think you can create generational wealth or change your family's financial future working for somebody else. My kids are learning that their security is not in a job. Their security is not in a government program, but rather it's in their own hands in providing value to others. And so as a dad, I believe that that is one of the most important lessons that I can teach my kids. We're happy as a family business, but we're growing, we're expanding. We operate mostly in the Midwest, and we decided as a group that we want to expand beyond the Midwest. And we're looking to add people outside of our family that really want to change their family's financial future the same way I have. To say this mission is personal would be an understatement. There's nothing I would rather do than to help you achieve the financial freedom and the security that I have with my family.